All right, welcome in to our January Zoom around Thermomix basics. So tonight we are going to be running through the basic things about the Thermomix. We're looking at some safety features, some really good do's and don'ts when you're getting started, have a little look at manual cooking modes, and some of the accessories and things that go with the Thermomix. If you have a specific question, please call it out, come off mute or pop it in the chat, and we can address that there. Before we get going with too much, if you can all find that chat box, it'll be somewhere on your screen, either down the bottom or up the side. I'd love for you to click on it, please, and pop in there what model Thermomix you have and whereabouts you're from. I know some of you guys are local, but there's a few names in here I don't know. So I'd love to know just a rough geographical area of whereabouts you are and what model Thermomix you have. If you do not have a TM6, it is great for me to know so that I can address the model that you have anywhere, that we're chatting about things. A TM6 in Brisbane, that is awesome. Welcome all the way from Brisbane. It's a little bit earlier up there for you guys, so thank you for joining us. You are so welcome to join us. And I'd love if the rest of you can pop that in there. Beautiful, another TM6, fantastic. So please, any questions that you have, is there a specific function, a specific feature, accessory, or a question that you have, please shout it out. We are here to help you. So my name is Jo. I am the team leader for our Mid-North Coast sort of area. So I look after the team of consultants that run from about Maitland right up to Port Macquarie, around Gloucester, Foster, all of that sort of area. We do have one consultant up in Queensland. She is on a cropping property up there. She actually joined us during COVID when things were a little bit different, but she stayed on with us. Everyone else is sort of local to the Mid-North Coast, except for Shannon, which is a little bit exciting. We're very lucky to have her. She's a fabulous, fabulous consultant. So what we love to do as consultants and as a team leader, I want to make sure that anyone that buys a Thermomix gets looked after. I want to make sure that they get a chance to really know the safety features, know how their machine works, and be getting lots out of it, not just now, but ongoing. So some of you might have had your Thermomix for a few years. You have very different questions and things to those who are brand new, but we want to make sure that you're all being looked after. So anytime you have a question, I would encourage you to reach out to your consultant, give them a call, send them a text and say, hey, I've got a question for you. Now, before I get in and start showing you guys things, I have to say that we have got a way where we love to teach you, and that is a demonstration or a cooking experience, we like to call them. And these are by far the very best way for you to learn the ins and outs of your Thermomix. So if you haven't had a Thermomix cooking experience, you might have had one right at the start, maybe didn't have one at all, I would highly recommend, if you get anything out of tonight, please go and have a cooking experience, because I guarantee the little bit I can teach you on Zoom in half an hour is nowhere near what you will learn by having your consultant in your home or on Zoom with you one-on-one, teaching you and cooking with you in the Thermomix. So I highly, highly recommend have a cooking experience, and then you can tailor the menu to what you want to see. Have a couple of friends over, you can show them what it can do. It's a really great way for everyone to learn. So highly, highly recommend that for your further learning. But for tonight, what we're going to do, here is our beautiful TM6. So I'm going to move the camera over here. Now, I don't know where you're all up to exactly, and no one has asked any specific questions. So I'm going to start right at the start. If you have specific questions, or if this is really boring stuff for you, please shout out, because I tailor this a little bit to who's on. So if you don't give me any feedback, I don't know whether I'm giving you new information or just old stuff that you know. But first of all, for the Thermomix, and one thing that is really, really important with the TM6 is that the scales for the Thermomix are located in the feet. There is 1 foot here at the front. There are 2 feet there at the back. They are the scales for your Thermomix. And if you drag or slide your Thermomix on the bench, you can upset those scales. So if this is a problem for you, To move your Thermomix is not a problem at all. Just lift it and put it back down. But if you're somebody who does like to drag or slide your Thermomix on the bench, we have got these slide boards and you can slide it around very easily. So these are a product we sell in our mix shop. They're also one of our host awards, which means you get them really discounted if you have a demo or a cooking experience. So they are something I can chat more about if you want to know anything about them. But that is our very first thing with the Thermomix. We don't want you to upset your scales, so make sure that you pick it up. Don't drag and slide it. Next thing is the bowl. We've, of course, got these pins at the bottom. These can get wet. Every part can go in the dishwasher except for the base unit. Don't put that in the dishwasher. But everything else can. So your bowl, your aroma, steaming basket, all the bits and pieces can go in the dishwasher. These pins need to be dry when they go back in the Thermomix. That is our really, really important safety tip. So dry pins before they go back in here. On our mix shop, we sell little cleaning brushes and things which are fantastic for getting in these cracks and crevices and in the bottom of the base. We sell the bowl brush, which is a bigger toilet-like looking brush that you can clean the bowl with. And we also sell little blade brushes as well. So chat with your consultant about the best thing to get. But your Thermomix should not be hard to clean. So if you are finding, if you're having any trouble at all with not being able to get your bowl clean or any part of your Thermomix, please sing out. This is where your consultant comes in and helps you. Between the TM6 and the pre-clean mode and the bowl brush and whatnot, you shouldn't ever be left with a dirty Thermomix or feeling like it's taking hours to clean it. So please sing out. And if any of you have a problem tonight, please yell out. But otherwise, go and chat with your consultant and they can talk you further through, cleaning things. Now, the scales on your Thermomix should weigh between 80 and 85 grams. Every machine will be slightly different. Mine usually sits around 83 or 81. Can't remember what machine this one is. 82. So there you go. I've got a few different ones, so it depends on the day. But around 82. Now, I know that if I weigh my measuring cup on top like this, and it weighs around between 80 and 85, that my scales are being on and working. So if you're ever unsure, weigh the measuring cup on the top. If you're finding that there's something wrong with your scales or they don't seem to be right, again, reach out to your consultant. We can troubleshoot them and work out what's going on. Now, we've got obviously our steaming basket. Now, who here, and you've got to be honest with me, please be honest, who uses this one regularly? Pop it into the chat box. There's a couple different ways that you can use this. So while you're responding, I'm going to go through them. Number one, you can put it in the bowl and you can cook your food in here. In this case, it might be for, say, boiling rice. It might be for steaming some veggies, doing things like that. In other cases, you actually pop it up the top. Take your measuring cup out and you stick it on the top. This is used to reduce the thing that's cooking, so let a bit of steam out. It's to avoid any splatter. So even though your food's cooking down here, it won't splatter because this is in the road. And for good heat distribution. So being able to let a little bit of heat out so you don't get a pressure cooker type situation in your bowl. Now, they're the two ways that we can use it. And 3 of you have responded and you all use it regularly, which is fantastic. If you don't, please sing out. We want you guys using all the bits and pieces of your Thermomix. So that's our steaming basket. The other thing we have is our butterfly whisk. Who has used this and who is confident with it? If you are all at all unsure, or if you have had an accident with this at all, and if you have, you will know it. If you haven't, good. Not confident. So what happens with the butterfly whisk? On your blades, you have 3 blades that bend down and you have 1 blade that bends up. If I pull these out, I'll show you. These are our Thermomix blades. Now, these are the replaceable part of your Thermomix. So if something goes wrong with your Thermomix, you overload it, you put too much in there, something like that, your Thermomix, your TM6 is designed to snap the blade. So there's a little bit in here that actually snaps. And then all you need to do is buy a new set of blades. You haven't wrecked your whole machine. You haven't burned out the motor and you haven't, jammed it or anything like that. These are the wear and tear part. So it is not uncommon for you need to replace these throughout, depending on your use and what you're doing. They're a really easy part. You can buy on the mix shop or again, reach out to your consultant and they can sort you out. So one blade is high, the rest are low. Now you want to put your butterfly whisk in just to the left of that high blade. So keep that one in mind. I'm going to put the high blade up the top, so 12 o'clock. So high blade is right there up at 12 o'clock. I'm going to put this just to the left. You can see that there. And that has locked in place as it starts to turn, and then a butterfly whisk will stay on. So if I am whipping cream, this will stay on. If I am partway through a risotto and ask me to put it on, or whip some fruity jam or whatever it might be, I put my butter in, like my butterfly whisk in like this, it's correct and it will stay on there. So don't be afraid of it. Give it a go and just start using it and your confidence will build. My other tip for the butterfly whisk is just for the first few seconds of the step, leave your measuring cup out so that you can see the butterfly whisk. Generally, if you haven't put your butterfly whisk on properly, it will fall off in the first few minutes, not 20 minutes into the cook time. It'll fall off in like the first 10 or 20 seconds. So when you first turn the wheel, just look through that hole, keep an eye on the butterfly whisk, make sure it's in place, and then pop your measuring cup in and go about your dish. That's our butterfly. And if you ever whip cream, if you haven't done it before, have a look in your basic cookbook about whipping times, that this will whip a bottle of cream in as little as 20 seconds, up to 2 minutes. So depending on the freshness of your cream, which is just crazy. And lots of people over whip their cream the very first time, and they make themselves butter by accident. So don't be upset if you do that. Bear in mind, 20 seconds. Do 20 seconds, check your cream, give it another 20 seconds. It's super easy to overbeat. Now, we have an exciting part here. This is a splash guard. So this is an accessory unique to the TM6. It comes with your machine. It sits on top of your lid when you are using the high heat function. So the TM5, the TM31, and the previous models of Thermomix could not get to a heat high enough to brown, saute, or caramelize. So you couldn't do any sugar work. You couldn't make honeycomb. You couldn't brown your chicken off. They could only get up to a maximum of about 120, 130, whereas the TM6 can get right up to 160 and do all of that fancy stuff. So when it comes to browning off your chicken or making honeycomb or doing those toffees and, you know, all those sorts of things, high heat veggies and things, it will often ask for your splash guard to sit on top. This is slightly different to your simmering basket, sorry. But the splash guard is specifically designed for high heat. This piece in the middle is solid, which will prevent any oil splatters, whereas the simmering basket isn't. So this one also locks in place because you don't ever want to lift this off while it is sizzling. If you haven't used the sizzle mode much, say you want to just cook some chicken, brown some chicken off, it only takes the Thermomix about 30 seconds to start frying and hearing that sizzle. It is super, super powerful. So you want to be really careful. The idea of this is that the lid locks in and you cannot pull it off while it's cooking. It's all part of the safety of it. And I challenge you, if you have a TM6, you've had it for a while and you haven't used your splash guard before, go and have a look in Cookie Doo and type in high heat and find some dishes and start using it. Because you are missing out if you are not using high heat on your Thermomix. Then we get to the fun part, and this is our Varoma. I hope you've all used this. Please be brave and say so in the chat. This is for our steaming. So we've got the Varoma dish, the Varoma tray, and the Varoma lid. Now, these are 3 different parts: dish, tray, lid. And when you are cooking and following a recipe, it will state what part to use. So if you are making an unfried rice, it will say, put your vegetables in the dish. And then in the tray, put your baking paper and pour your egg in and make an omelette. And it will be really specific as to whether it's a tray or whether it's a dish, depending on what you're cooking. So you do need to just read through your recipes when you're using the Varoma and make sure that you're using the right part. Then, of course, you've got your lid that goes on top. And this is where your layered cooking really comes into its own. You may have your steaming basket in the bowl, depending on what you're cooking. You might have a sauce down the bottom. You might have veggies in here and then meat in here or vice versa, and you end up with an entire meal done in 45 minutes, and it's all done in your Thermomix with all these different components. So the Varoma is absolutely something to get into. We're not going to do any live cooking with it tonight, but we do have Zooms based around the Varoma because it is an item that we often hear people say they don't use enough or they need help with. Our cooking class last weekend was just Varoma. We just did all Varoma dishes to just get people in and using it and trying the food in it. So I encourage you again, reach out to your consultant, let them know if you're not using it, because it's really easy for us to come over to your house, cook some Varoma dishes, and do it with that way, or do it with you on Zoom and really get you feeling the benefit of it. So that's our Varoma. And this is a little accessory. This is our most sought after accessory with the Thermomix. And this is the only thing that you cannot buy. So you can't jump on the mix shop and buy these. These are called thermoservers. So what these are basically a giant thermos. They will keep your food hot for 2 hours or cold for 2 hours. And they really honestly do. If any of you have one of these, let us know. But honestly, these are absolutely amazing. So when it comes to cooking in your Thermomix, you may want to cook the first part or cook dish one, pop it into your thermoserver. It will keep it piping hot for a couple of hours. You can cook something else in there and keep on going. You might do your rice first, pop it in here, cook your curry in there, vice versa. These are absolutely exceptional. And for summer, you can pop your salads in there, the ice creams in there, all that sort of thing that will keep it really cold. Or even meat if you're doing a barbecue, use it outside. And again, they'll keep it really, really hot. So these are an accessory we don't sell in our mix shop. They're an exclusive cooking experience post-reward, which means that you have to have a demo of some sort in order to get yourself one of these. A demo doesn't require anyone to buy anything. It just means that we cook with you and you have a couple of friends there. And that way you get yourself to unlock one of these. We have these in different shapes and sizes. Again, chat with your consultant further about what they do and how the best way is for you to get them. Now, we get here to the Thermomix. I'm going to bring this in a little bit. Now, I apologize. I do not have the best screen set up. So I'm going to very much talk you through this more so than you being able to see it on the screen. My camera isn't great for seeing a Thermomix screen. However, you guys all have a Thermomix, so you should be fairly familiar. So the basics of Thermomixing is manual cooking, and this is what anyone with an older model Thermomix would have started with. And this is where you have a time, a temperature, and a speed. In this case, 3 circles. So when it comes to doing anything with heat, you set your time, you adjust your knob here, you set your temperature, and then you set your speed to get it in motion. Now, you have got reverse, so underneath your number, just hit the blades. And the little blade signal here will turn into a reverse arrow. It'll say reverse enabled, and that means that your blades are now going back the other way. So instead of cutting on the sharp side, they are now just gently stirring on the blunt side. Now, if you've only ever cooked a cookie dough recipe, you may not realize that the machine is doing this. In the cookie dough recipes, that is automatic. You only need to do this if you are cooking manually, one of your own recipes or all playing around, or a recipe you found online or something like that. Now, you swipe across to the right and you will see cookie dough. Now, scroll down here. This looks just like the homepage of cookie dough. I'm not going to dive a ton into cookie dough today because our next Zoom session, as I mentioned at the start, is a fully deep dive into cookie dough and cookie dough only. So if you are finding that you might like cookie dough, but you're just not using it enough, or you're finding it hard to get recipes or whatever it might be, our next cookie dough Zoom will just run through cookie dough. I'll tell you how to change your filters, how to search by different collections. Cookie dough is very clever. You can, if you know how to use it and you know how to use your filters, you can say, I need a meal done in under 45 minutes. I need it to suit these dietary requirements. I might need to be gluten-free or dairy-free. And I want it to contain broccoli and chicken because I have them in my fridge. And it will tell you, bring you up recipes on the screen to tell you what you can make that fits that criteria. But you need to know how to plug that information in. So the next Cookie Dough Zoom will go through all of that sort of stuff, how to save collections, do a shopping list, all the bits and pieces. So look into that one if you haven't already, and that will be helpful. So this whole page down here is just one big look through Cookie Do, the same as your home page at the bottom. Now, if you have never done this, scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see some videos that'll have a little play button in them. I encourage you to press play. It is very, very cool to watch and hear a video playing on your TM6. If you ever have a friend over, it is a pretty cool party trick to pop it on, and it plays it with music and sound and all the bits and pieces. So have a little play around and see. It's a pretty cool smart device. Now, if I go back the other way, I swipe to the left, I get all these little modes, and I apologize, you can't read these very well, but I'm going to run through these quickly. Now, if you want specific help or examples for one mode, please pop them in the chat. If you've had trouble with a mode, you want to know more, please pop that in the chat and I can pause on it. We have run specific Zooms, lots of them that focus all around these modes, and we will have more this year. So you can look on our YouTube channel and have a look at previous classes where we cook with the different modes and things like that. Tonight, I'm just going to give you a brief run through, but please, any questions that you have, throw them in the chat and I'll answer them as we go. So first of all, you've got your scales. So of course, this is as we used before. You can weigh things out on top of the Thermomix, for instance, while you're cooking, or you can, of course, weigh things in the bowl. You've got your Thermomix sensor. Now, if you don't have a sensor and you don't want this to be right up here, you can hit your three dots and say Edit View, and that will give you the option to move all these icons around. So prioritize the icons by the accessories that you're using and what modes you use the most. Now, the sensor is a very cool little device. Mine is just over here. This is another extra that you do want to get depending on how you cook. This is a little probe that goes into the food that you are wanting to cook and reads the internal and external temperatures and then tells the Thermomix where it's at. So for instance, if I'm cooking a banana bread and I'm not too sure about cooking banana bread, maybe I don't know my oven or I'm not very confident, I can pop this in the side of my loaf pan, pop it in the oven, and it will read back to my Thermomix and tell me when it is just the perfect temperature inside to pull it out. How cool is that? Particularly with breads, dishes you don't know before, that you haven't done before, meat, things like that. You can use it in the oven, on the barbecue, in the stove, in lots of different places. So this is our Thermomix sensor, and that is why you have the mode on here. Again, if you want one, reach out to your consultant and they can chat with you about the best way to get it. The next thing here is the chop mode. So if you open up the chop mode, and I encourage you to do this, if you haven't, you're missing out. Open up the chop mode, and this is a total digital view of all the different settings to do all of your chopping, grating, milling. So you've got a whole alphabetical list here of everything from grating apple to making minced meat to making breadcrumbs to grating cheese to everything else. So if you click on apples, it will tell you how much apple to put in there, how long to chop for, and what consistency you're going to get. And it will do that for everything. So particularly if you are newer to a Thermomix and you're a bit unsure of using it like that, the Thermomix is designed that you can use it a bit like a sous chef. So say, I don't have time to grate this carrot up. You do it, Thermomix. Great, there's my grated carrot. Oh, I don't have time to do that. Can you do that for me? And it will do it for you. And you can use those recipes, use those little bits and pieces, not always in a complete Thermomix recipe. You might use them somewhere else in your kitchen. So the more you can get comfy with your Thermomix like that, the better it will be for you. More like a set of hands for you rather than always doing a meal start to finish. So this chop function, go and have a play with it. It is fantastic. You've got the dough mode. Now that, of course, is your need. Any Cookie Do recipe will just pull that in automatically. But if you would like to do your own recipe or do it manually, you hit that dough there. You've got turbo. This is like a super quick blitz, or if you've had like an old blender or food processor, it would often be called a pulse button. It just gives it a super quick zzz, 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 and chops everything up. Pre-clean. This is one of my favorite modes from the TM6. When you are done with your cooking, put a liter of water in the bowl, a drop of dishwashing liquid or a drop of vinegar, and then set it for the setting that you want, depending on what you've cooked. Now, these are all heat settings. So if you click on the little info icon, it'll give you an idea of what heat range each thing goes to. But obviously your browning or your fat and caramel, it gets the water up hot enough to remove any fat or caramel residue on there. Whereas your dough mode will only keep the water nice and cold so that you don't actually cook the flour and things on there. So very, very clever in a fantastic way. Once this is done, it doesn't matter what you've cooked, you can pretty well tip your Thermomix, tip the water out down the sink, give it a little swoosh around or throw it straight in your dishwasher, and it's ready to go for the next meal. So very cool mode. We've got blend. Blend is a little bit like your blender or your milkshake button. What it does is it takes it up to speed, just takes a few seconds to get there. It prevents your contents flying straight up and going onto the lid. So I encourage you to try this one if you are somebody who makes lots of smoothies, thick shakes, things like that. You may have found that sometimes you turn the Thermomix around to speed 8 or 9 or 10 and your contents go right up and onto the lid. And then when you're finished, you have a beautiful smoothie, but you have little bits still up and around the lid. Well, this blend mode will really prevent that. So have a play with the blend mode, see what you think. We've got the egg boiler mode. Again, that is that sensory cooking where we pop our eggs straight in the bowl around the blades. You put some water in and you just tell the Thermomix how you want your eggs cooked and it will ding when they are ready. It is phenomenal. If you're not using it, you're missing out. Kettle mode, this will heat your water up to precisely whatever degree you set it for, anywhere between 100 and 37. So if you are someone that likes your herbal teas and you don't want it to be quite at that boiling temperature, you can set it for 90 or 95, whatever it might be. And it will pretty well match a household kettle for speed. So very cool. Warm up. Warm up is a mode great for warming up things like soups, anything a bit liquidy like that in the bowl. The best thing about this is that you can set your temperature and it will only warm to that temperature and stop. So if you have, for instance, little kids and you want to warm up their soup without burning them or getting too hot, you just set the temperature for what you want it to be, you press warm up and it will only take it to that temperature and then it will tell you it's ready. So very, very clever. Then we've got thickening mode. Thicken mode is absolutely phenomenal. And again, go and have a look on our YouTube channel for some recipes with this. It is awesome. Or type it into Cookie Doo and have a look. This is, again, that sensory cooking for your sauces, gravies, anything like that. So coulis, curds, all that sort of thing. You put your ingredients in, press thicken, and it knows. It will have a minute there of sensory cooking where it's working out how much liquid, how much thickness is in this, exactly how hot am I going to have to go, how fast am I going to have to turn it, how long am I going to cook for? And then it will just take off and ding when you have the perfect consistency. It is absolutely amazing. So that's our thickening mode. And then we have rice cooker. Rice cooker is where it will turn your Thermomix into a rice cooker, put your rice straight into the bowl, your rice or your grain straight in the bowl, put your water in, press rice cooker. It will turn the blades just for the first couple of minutes and then it will stop and sit and work like a standalone rice cooker. Very cool. Again, type it into Cookie Doo or ask a consultant if you need more help with it. You've got fermentation mode, great for your yogurt, sauerkrauts, anything like that. You can ferment in the bowl and you can ferment up in the varoma. Then you've got slow cook. Slow cook is a fantastic feature of the TM6, being where the blade does turn, but only every couple of minutes. So it will just give it a slow, gentle stir every so often. You can slow cook for up to 8 hours. You've got your sous vide. This is where you can slow cook your generally meat, sometimes eggs and things like that, that you in a water bath. So the most common thing is a steak. A beautiful steak, you pop it in a vacuum sealed bag, you immerse it in a water bath in the Thermomix, you press sous vide and you can then be direct to exactly what degree you want it to. You cook it in there in that water bath and then you pull it out and you sear it how you want it on the stove or the barbecue. It is, the best way to describe it is a bit like hog's breath steak. Have you ever had one of those? They're slow cooked for so long, but yet they're still at the exact rarity that you want. So if you ask for it to be medium rare, although it's been cooked for 8 hours and it's beautiful and soft, it'll still be medium rare. Well, sous vide is a little bit similar to that. Again, go and have a look at it. Chat with your consultant if you want to know more. You've got the peeler. That is to do with the Blade Cuppa Wave peeler. It's an accessory you can buy to go with the Thermomix. It will do things like peel your potatoes, peel your beetroots and carrots and all that sort of thing. Then you've got a grating. That is part of the cutter attachment that we now have. You pop it on the top. It's got a special cutting disc and you can grate or slice. And that is where our slicing mode comes in as well. So both grating and slicing. Now, this grating mode will give you shards like what you get out of a packet of grated cheese. So yes, you can grate your cheese straight in the Thermomix bowl, but it's in little pieces. If you want that aesthetic look of cheese looking like it's grated from a shop, that is where the cutter will grate it just like that. You won't be able to tell the difference. Fantastic for grating your carrots and all that sort of bits and pieces. It does a thick and a thin grate, and then same thing with your slicing. So all of your salad prep, potato bakes, veggie bakes, all sorts of things you can do with that with the slicer or the cutter. And you can do it again a thick and a thin. So a wafer paper thin cut, and then a perfect veggie bake thick cut. Now we have a brand new one called the spiralizing. This is a brand new accessory, and that accessory slides into your cutter, and then it does all your spiralizing. So this is for things like your zoodles, which is very popular right now. But also it also does a thicker ribbon zoodle as well. So how do the attachments work if they don't have cookie dough? Well, yeah, that's where you're using the modes. So you're using them manually. So if you have cookie dough and you use a recipe that needs the cutter, it will automatically pull that mode in, and it will just say click next, put your cutter disc in this way up, it'll talk you through it. But if you don't want to use cookie dough, then you just use this manually over here. So you just press, grating or slicing or spiralizing, put the attachment in and use it to completely manual. So this is using the modes themselves, whereas if you're following cookie dough in a guided recipe, it will automatically pull them in. There's a bit of a difference. So that is the basics of Thermomix without going into anything else. Has anybody got a question or anything that they would like to know more about before we finish up? Please throw them out into the chat. Like I said, we have a cookie dough Zoom, so I'm not going to cover off too much of cookie dough tonight, but I do really encourage you, jump onto that cookie dough Zoom and learn more. If you have something particular you want to learn about making bread, or you want to learn about using high heat, let us know, because we can run specific classes on them, or we may even have them scheduled as well. Make sure that you check out our link tree. I will pop it in the chat in a second, and it will be there as well for anybody, so you can have a look at all our upcoming things. But if no one has any questions, I'm going to finish off our recording,